Blessed be everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I just wanted to share with you my journey through Wicca. But before I dive into that, I'm Sandra from MysteryWitchSchool.com. If you're new to the channel and you want to know more about Wicca and witchcraft, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss any of the videos. I had always been interested in all things supernatural, occult, ever since I can remember. Some of my favourite books to read were ghost stories and stories about magic and witches and fairies and all of these otherworldly things, or what I thought of as otherworldly at the time. And I was fortunate enough to have a sister who was 5.5 years older than me, and she would bring home a lot of books on these subjects as well, because she had an interest in them too. And so when I was around about 14, my sister brought home a book by Justine Glass called Witchcraft and the Sixth Sense. And it was basically a book on the Cochrane style of Wicca. Now, I can't remember much of that book or the Cochrane style of Wicca, to be honest. All I remember is that the word stood out to me, and I had a really good view of what witchcraft was simply by reading that book aged 14. Fast forward to age 22, and my sister and I had come across a house that a friend of my mother's was selling. And it had this veranda, and on the veranda there were these carvings of a woman sitting on top of a cauldron. And as soon as I saw that, and the house was a really cute house, it was a greenhouse. It had this interesting sort of rusty red trim, and it really did look like a witch's cottage, because even the garden around it had this feeling of something foresty. And so I instantly remembered the book of that I'd read, and the word Wicca just stood out to me really, really loudly. Now, between the age of 14 and the age of 22, I hadn't even thought about witchcraft. Well, no, I didn't think that I'd thought about witchcraft. But the interesting thing is when I went through drawings that I'd done back when I was around 14 or 15, I had actually done a self-portrait of myself dressed in like a typical kind of witchy robe with the word Wicca written beside it. Now, I don't even remember drawing that picture at all, yet I found it there. And it was in with my drawings that I drew when I was at high school. So somewhere along the line, I was really connecting to it on a subconscious level, and it just was totally out of my consciousness. So that day after my sister and I saw this house, we started talking about Wicca and all of these things, and we decided that we'd go to a bookstore and find out more about it. So I went to one of the New Age bookstores that were around at the time, picked up a copy of Scott Cunningham's The Truth About Witchcraft Today, read the book pretty much in a couple of days, and was totally hooked. Since then, I had bought just about every book I could find on Wicca and witchcraft, which wasn't a lot back then, because there was no internet, no Google, none of that. It was all what you could get at the library, which isn't much either, or in a bookstore. But I was diligent. I practiced the rituals that were in the books. I practiced the magic and the spells in the books. I came up with my own spells, and I did the best I could by myself, just with the limited information that I had from the books. And I managed to incorporate Wicca into my life through doing really tiny Sabbath rituals and connecting to the moon monthly for full moons, as best I could for about 18 months to 2 years before I actually found a coven. And I was looking for a coven for a while. Pretty much 6 months into just discovering Wicca, I was looking for a coven but couldn't find one. Then when I was ready to find one, I came across a coven very, very easily, joined that coven, and learned a lot from the high priestess and the high priest. It was a training coven, and we got together once a week to train. We had a sort of a syllabus, basically. Traditional Wicca, you really do have a bit of a syllabus. So the first year is about the foundation. It is about learning how to set up a circle. It is about learning about the Sabbats. It is about being introduced to magic. You're also learning the moon rites, connecting with the goddess and God, and working with energy. And that's pretty much what you do in the first year. The second year is when you then explore all of the other things that witches do, like divination, astral traveling, further into meditation. For the coven that I was in, there was a little bit work done on the Kabbalah and also astrology. And then you move on to really finding your specialty in third degree. The first year, the teachings of the first year are really where the spiritual stuff comes in. Doing divination, doing astral traveling, all of these things are skills, but they're not really things that are necessarily going to change the way you feel about yourself or the way that you feel about the world or the way that you connect necessarily to the world. I mean, it can help give you experiences, but that real connection to the deities and connection to yourself comes through the rituals, comes through doing magic, and also comes to the work that you do on yourself. Now, unfortunately, with the covens that I had been in my past, nobody in the covens could teach the inner inquiry work. There wasn't anybody there who could help with shadow work. And a lot of the people that came through the covens had a lot of problems. They had a lot of psychological issues and stuff going on in their lives that made their lives very difficult. And a lot of us were coming to the craft because we were looking for a way to be happy. We were looking to the craft as a way to bring us joy, to be able to have more control over our lives, to not feel like we were just jellyfish in the ocean, being swept about by the tides, looking for a way to have meaning in our lives, and just looking for that joy and happiness. And whilst being part of a community that met every week, being able to do the rituals, knowing about magic, connecting with the goddess and God was good, it didn't solve those problems. It didn't help us change what we needed to change within ourselves to be able to see ourselves differently, to be able to then see the world differently and be able to take action and do the actual changes we needed to make in our lives to bring in that joy and that happiness. So I went on a search after I'd finished with the covens, when I went back to being a solitary again because I moved away, to try and find the solution to this inner angst that I still had, that my coven training and Wicca training just had not been able to give me. And so during this time is when I investigated Hermeticism. I looked at Buddhism. I spent some time in a Gurdjieff/Sufi group and learned a lot through exercises and meditations from all of those sources. And I also went to the whole self-help, self-development movement, going through different types of, doing lots of affirmations and just trying to make myself feel better in the world, feel less self-doubt, to feel more confident, to be able to overcome fears, to not be so worried about what other people thought of me, what was holding me back. Because I thought that magic could change that, and it didn't. I thought that being able to do Wiccan practices in and of themselves as I learnt them traditionally were going to be able to change that, and they didn't. So I needed something else. And through all of this, this combination of meditation that I learned from Buddhism, some exercises that I learned about being able to separate our observing self from our ego so that we can look at our feelings and reactions to things as being something the ego is doing and not something our higher self is doing, and being able to observe it from a more objective point of view and not getting sucked into all of the ego attachments. I learned that from Buddhism. I also learned a bit of that from Sufism and also from the Gurdjieff work as well, and Hermeticism. And then, of course, there was the healing work that I did with the modalities like emotional freedom technique and hypnotherapy. And all of this combined then helped me come back to my Wiccan practice in a way that actually helped me connect more to the actual Wiccan practices. So it was like all of these things combined with my Wiccan tradition was then able to help me find the meaning I was wanting to find. And I could incorporate the meditation practices. I can incorporate the self-help shadow work practices into my Wiccan practice, because it all belongs together. Our spiritual path is about us learning who we are. It's about us changing ourselves. It's about us being able to put the ego to one side, to be able to look at it and see it as something that's just there to keep us safe, and it doesn't always do that because of the way it's programmed, and sometimes we have to go in and change the program. We don't want the ego running our lives because it doesn't lead to a happy life at all. We want to make the ego our servant, the servant of the higher self. And all of these practices together have been what's built my personal Wiccan practice. So when I teach now, which I've been doing now for quite a while, I bring all of these practices together in a Wiccan form and in a way that works well within the whole Wiccan paradigm. So around 2012, I joined a meetup group, and within a couple of years of joining that group, I ended up becoming a co-organizer of that group, and then that group went through various different incarnations, and I ended up being the sole leader of that group for quite some time. And it was during that time people would come to me and ask me, do you teach, do you teach, do you teach? And I would say, well, this group is basically the only avenue for teaching. And it was not a formal educational system at all. It was just, we get together once a month. We'll maybe do a ritual one month, another month we may do a group training on magic or something. So eventually I realized that I needed to actually start something more formal, because so many people were saying, I don't know where to start, I don't know what to do, I'm confused about what's out there. I really feel connected to Wicca. I really want to have a happier, more joyful, peaceful life. I want to be able to be a light in the world. I want to be able to help other people. So many Wiccans join because they want to help other people and share their skills with other people. So I put together the Mystery Witch School, and then the Mystery Witch School 101 Academy, which is the basic rituals of the Sabbats, the moons, the introduction to magic, energy work, and that personal development shadow work to work on the self, to help you connect more with yourself. And that's the thing that I've put into the way that I teach that was missing from the way I was taught. And it just made such a difference that my Wiccan practice now is so much more fulfilling than it was right back in the very beginning. So I just wanted to share that journey with you, because I know some people have been on the path for a long time and still feel that there's a gap. They still feel there's something missing from the practice, and it may just simply be that connection to yourself and not quite knowing how to get that connection to who you really are, away from who you think you should be or who you're told you should be in the world. So I just wanted to put that out and share that with you. So if you like the video, share it with your friends, like it as well. And if you do want to know more about the Mystery Witch School 101 Academy, the link to that is in the description field below this video. I'll see you on the next video. Blessed be.